I've got a little.
All right, you grasshoppers. We are back live again. We're stuck with Allie. We cannot get rid of her. We're trying our best. But along with Allie comes Bill, so that's the positive thing about it. I'm just kidding, Allie. How are you doing? Good to see you guys.
We're great.
You too, Tom and Allison.
Good. Well, you know, it's funny. There's sometimes I think in life, and it's the same thing in the show, you meet people for a certain reason. And we brought Bill on to talk about what he does and all the vaccines and all that kinds of stuff. But in our conversations, even after the show, we realized we had a lot in common. The three of us had a lot in common together. Bill started telling us the stories about his, he's quite the athlete here, Mr. Fitness. So that makes us keep up with him. But he was telling us a great story about where were we running when you met Jeremy? What was the run?
It was the Lake Placid Ironman in 2010.
Good. So I want to tee up a little bit on this. We were talking after the show last time we had Bill on. It was like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it was just he was telling this great story about when he was in this run with Jeremy. So why don't you tell us the story about Jeremy that you met on that run?
Sure. Well, I started running back. Just a little information up front. I started running back in the early 90s, and it was kind of a dare. Some buddies and I realized that we weren't in our high school or college shape, and I was an athlete at both levels, and very few people like you, Tom, get to the upper echelon. What is 0.5% become professional athletes? But I gave it a go in high school and college, and then moving back east, starting to work. I just noticed. I probably didn't make the best food choices. I didn't eat very well. I gained weight, and I thought, boy, I have to do something. So I started running, and I started putting in a mile or two, 4 miles, 5 miles, and then one day on a dare, I ran 10 miles. And so our very good friend, we were talking about the running, and we said we ought to do the Marine Corps Marathon. And one of our friends laughed at us. So there's no way you two guys could finish a marathon. And so it was kind of the throwing down the gauntlet. He goes, I'll bet you a dinner anywhere in town, you guys don't finish. So we took the challenge. We ran the marathon. It was ugly. It probably wasn't the best training, but I learned a lot about how difficult it is. And so it just became this kind of a quest, to keep at it. And I ran my next marathon. And what was great about not only the accomplishment of finishing a race, it's kind of the accomplishment that you do with your friends, and you do with others, and it's not just the race. I think the race is just kind of the exclamation point. I think the training is actually the hardest piece of it. And so I really started to take it really seriously, and I really started to explore running a whole lot more. And I trained with a very good friend who today his name is Mick, and we affectionately call each other Uncle Mick and Uncle Bill. We're just that close. He's 85 years old, and
hold on. Mick is 85 years old and he's running marathons.
Well, he's retired from marathons, but the guy goes out, runs 4 or 5 miles a day. I mean, he's just that fit. And I go for a run with him, and I feel the workout. So it was kind of, before I get to Lake Placid, if I could maybe just kind of show and tell, I asked Mick, or affectionately Uncle Mick, I said, how many marathons have you run, Mick? And he told me 19. And I said, Mick, I think I want to try to eclipse your marathon record. Nice. And he said, okay, there. And so the goal was to get to 20. So I did. Here's just some of the examples. I framed all these. There's a story with every one of these. And I actually did my 20th. If you can see the Athens Marathon, you actually start in marathon. I did that in 2013. And that was kind of the double dare. And then I decided, marathons are great. To do something a little more challenging. And that's when I decided to go for it at Lake Placid. And that's actually, I'll show you, that's a picture of the finishing medal and the shirt and everything from Lake Placid. And these are some other Ironman competitions I've done. And there's just great stories with all of it. It's fantastic stories. Just the people that you get to meet, the people you meet in training, the friends you make, the journey along the way. And so to my race in Lake Placid, to get to your question, what I did is, I'd never done one. Probably the sensible thing would have been to do a mini triathlon, an Olympic distance, or a sprint or something else. And so I foolishly said, I'm just going to go for the whole thing. And my friends thought I was crazy, but I thought, well, you know what? I'll go ahead. I'll go for it. And so I trained, and you realize it's the volume of training. It's a 140.6 mile race. It's 2.4 miles in open water. It's 112 miles on the bike, and it's a marathon at the end. Each piece is timed out. You have from essentially 7 a.m. in the morning till midnight to finish this. And so Lake Placid, it's 2 loops of everything. 2 loops on the swim, 2 loops on the bike, and 2 loops on the run. And so I got through the swim. It was pretty difficult. You're with 3,000 of your new best friends in open water. That's 2.4 miles. Finished the swim, got on the bike, did my first 56 miles, and it's in Lake Placid, so it's mountainous. Pretty challenging ride. The second 56 was even more challenging because I was tired and I'd never gone that far, and so it was difficult. So got to the run, ran my first 13 miles, and then got to the second loop. And in my second loop, about mile 16, I meet somebody who's not doing so well. This is younger than me, and he's on the side of the road, and I can tell he's struggling. And so I ran past him, and I thought, I should go back and see what's going on with this fellow. So go back. I said, hey, how are you doing? And he says, well, I'm not doing so well. This might be it for me. And I said, oh, well, what's going on? Just curious, how many marathons have you run? I've never run one, which means this is his first Ironman, as his first, distance at this level. So I said, wow, you were the Ironman here. Are you kidding me? You've gone this far. I said, what's the challenge for you to run 10 more miles? And he he'd gone 16, and he basically said, I don't know. I'm struggling. I just can't take a step forward. And I said, well, can you run from here to the flowers? And he said, sure. Can you run from here to the house down the way? Yeah, we can do that. So my goal, this fellow's name is Jeremy. He lives in New Hampshire, Jeremy Woodward, and he's actually a big fitness guru in New Hampshire. I said, Jeremy, can you run from here to the forest down at the end of the street? Yeah, we can do that. So I realized, while this race was super important to me, what became more important is to see Jeremy finish. I figure there's billions of people that don't even know this race is going on, and who cares? If I don't finish, if my newfound friend Jeremy doesn't finish, it feels like this is not going to be a good day. And so we kept talking and I could see him sort of getting a second wind. Turns out that the governor of New Hampshire was tracking him on a device during his race. How cool is that? The next piece of it was he had about 40 people from New Hampshire there to root him on, which was even cool, even cooler. Like all these, friends and family were there to root him on. So we get to about mile 23, and he tells me that he was a recipient. He had a heart condition, and he was a recipient of a Medtronic's device. So he was given a bad prognosis, 3 years earlier. And I said, boy, if I'd have known that, I should have left you at mile 16. And we laughed and we got through it. And here he was. His doctor gave him the green light to run, and off he went. So we got to, about mile 22, 23, and all his fans or supporters were on the side and cheering him. And I swear my feet could have come, 6 inches off the ground. It was so exhilarating to hear all those people cheering for Jeremy. And then we got near the finish. Everything is 2 loops. You finish where they had the Miracle on Ice, 1980, at Lake Placid, where the hockey team had won the Olympics. And you get to the finish, and I'd gone in and had run around the track to go to the finish. And lo and behold, Jeremy's not next to me. And I thought, well, where did he go? So I decided to turn around and start running back the opposite way, which you're not supposed to do in Ironman. They think you really are delirious and out of it. And I told people, look, I'm okay. I'm just trying to find a friend. So what he had done is, like Pavlov's dog, he had gone for his third loop. He was so delirious. So I found him. I said, Jeremy, let's go finish. And he goes, okay. So we both got to the finish. We both cried. We hugged. We got to meet each other's families. It was one of the most exciting days, in life. And it wasn't so much, finishing Ironman is really, really cool because of all the work and effort it takes to get there. But seeing him finish, that was the most awesome thing. So we're friends still till today. We communicate all the time. He is truly an inspiration to a lot of people because of his story and the condition, what he has dealt with. And, I see, his tweets and everything that he does to inspire other people to train. And I think, part of that for me has been running and exploring Ironman and distance running. It's been a really great journey for me, because it's been a great journey for others, and not necessarily that my friends or people that I meet are terribly interested in running some of those distances. But if you can inspire somebody else to walk their dog, to take a flight of stairs instead of taking the elevator, to do all those things, I think people just naturally, they don't need to be told what to do. They need to kind of find it on their own. I'm sure your experience with others, whether in athletics or just kind of they get in a rut, is it something that they can find a way to, just get a little nudge, little inspiration, because it's already there. It's already embedded in all of us. So that's the 5 minute story of Jeremy and how I come to meet Jeremy and what this has meant to me just in terms of my life and in terms of, eating better, feeling better, meeting great people along the way, like you guys.
Actually, Bill, that was a 10-minute story. It wasn't 5 or 6. Okay, it's 10 minutes.
Well,
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
26 minutes.
Yeah. I love the story. I remember you told Allie and I that story after the first time we had you on. It's a fantastic story. And we also, I think the three of us agree, when you do something for somebody else like that, and I can feel it in your voice, you end up getting more back from helping somebody else, right?
Exactly. It just such, it's such an important, it's not just the athletic event, it's everything that surrounds it. It's all the lead up to it. It's during the race, it's after, it's the celebration. And it's like you're celebrating, greater life. You're celebrating something, you thought you couldn't do and you did it. And you inspired people along the way too, to do things that they, up until that point, they just needed that extra little nudge.
Yeah. Allie, you're the same thing too. You're very inspirational. I know you're going to be very humble about this, but you do a lot with the youth hockey program there in Virginia Beach too, don't you?
I do, but I think like you, Tom, doesn't knowing that you're part of something bigger than yourself help to keep you going too?
Yeah.
Like totally. It's actually, somewhat, I don't want to use the word selfish, but I was just thinking about this last week. The more good you do for other people, the more it feeds you. And I think that I just think that the older I get in life, the more obvious that becomes. And the more I just am like obsessed with helping other people enjoy their life more or have more fun doing their work. Or even for my clients, my goal this year is let's make work more fun, if I can do that possibly. So it's the kids, seeing the kids be able to play hockey and see the coaches in particular, because I'm an adult, so I look out at the coaches, the dads and the moms out there. We actually have some women who are coaching, seeing their eyes and their excitement, seeing them on the bench. Tom, you know what this is all about. You know what hockey is all about. You know, it just gives you a sense of life and exuberance. So just helping support that and make it, as safe as possible during the pandemic is everything. It gives you some rhythm and reason.
Yeah. And it's funny, probably about a month ago, the Rangers, they do a lot of great stuff in the community. They had me go into the Bronx here in New York. They had a food pantry. So you're thinking you're going there to help other people. And the people outside, they were lined up to get into the food pantry. We're there for hours, women, particularly women with their kids and everything. And, we're going through this terrible time of the pandemic, and everybody, and rightfully so, people are feeling down about things, the way things are happening. But these people, they're there they couldn't buy their own food. They were there to get free food, but they were having a ball. I went out and talked to them. They were laughing and joking around. They're making the best of the situation. And the same as you kind of felt somewhat selfish, because now I ended up thinking I was going there to help other people at the event. I probably got more out of it myself, because I'm walking away thinking, what am I getting down the dumps for? Yes, it's a tough time, the pandemic, but here I am. I'm fine. I've got my own food, a place to stay. And here's these people that need to come to a food pantry, but they're loving life. They're out there having a ball, and you do end up getting a lot from it. Yeah. Good stuff.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Good for you. Good for you did that.
Yeah. Well, so you know what? So the theme of our show today is being a good human being, right? Is that pretty much sums it up? Just being there's so many different variations of that. What being a good human being really means. It's helping other people. To me, it's just the way you're living your life too. I don't know if we talked about this, but there's a great, remember the movie with the Navy SEALs in it? I can't remember the name of it. Act of Valor, I think it was called. And one of the SEALs, there's actually Navy SEALs that are in the movie acting. And he talked about how he was a big fan of this Shawnee warrior chief, Tecumseh. He was a chief back like 1800s and stuff. And he wrote all these poems. And he was some great stuff. And it talked about beautifying your life, beautifying the world that you live in. And again, that comes in so many different ways, right? Actually, beautify, like cleaning things up around you, but helping other people so much. It's really interesting reading, because this guy's he's a warrior chief, but he wrote these poems that are very thoughtful about how to treat other human beings and everything. So I just thought it was a great inspiration. So.
No, I agree. It's very interesting. Having lived in Japan, the care that people take around their homes and their shops, and the intention with which they live life. I mean, behind me is some just reminders of that time, and actually a beautiful present from a friend of mine from his hometown, right up here. It just reminds me of the beautiful people that I've met, and the warriors. Musashi's Five Rings. Musashi is a very famous samurai from, I want to say 1300s, long time ago. But he wrote a book, and it was very poetic, really, about battle. And it just struck me as so interesting that that's just kind of how they approach everything related to living life, whether it's, war fighting, or preparing beautiful food, or preparing the home, or just even accepting difficulty. The word shogunai is basically, it is what it is. And I just find that the peace and the gratitude that they find in nature, and just in accepting what comes their way, is extremely inspiring. Even traffic jams, for the most part. I learned so much from just living in Japan, and just watching and observing, and becoming very good friends with people there.
Good. Bill, earlier on, I think part of being a good human being is taking care of yourself too. And you talked about how you're not eating very well when you were younger, and now you've kind of cleaned up your diet. Are you pretty strict with your diet now?
I am, to a certain extent. I mean, I try to eat a leaner diet, more, vegetables and fruit, and but if there's a fast food place once in a while, that's okay. I mean, moderation, I guess, is kind of the key. But I noticed, when I started running and I started eating better, eating healthier, I found that my running improved. I found that I lost weight. But it doesn't mean that I, 100% disciplined all the time. I think, like most people, it's not always easy to do that. You go to a friend's house, or you go to a party, or you go to whatever.
Yeah.
You're not always going to get your optimal choice of food. But I found that I do. I try to eat better. And I think it comes. I notice that when I train, and I'm training right now for a race that's May 1st. It's a half Ironman, and I just noticed, like in my training for the past month, that I'm just eating better, because when I fuel correctly, my training is better. My runs, my swims, my rides are a lot better. Just all in all.
Ali, you're pretty healthy with your eating too, aren't you? With the kids and everything.
Yeah, we try to be. Although there's a lot of grilled cheese that gets made here, so I think people get into like habits. And one of the things I think about when I'm driving to hockey and I'm driving down one road all the time, I'm thinking about all the people who are in a hurry and trying to get to work, or maybe working multiple shifts. And, how do you work in good food and good eating habits into a really super busy life where, it's kind of catch as catch can. And, it's interesting. I'd be curious, you two gentlemen, when you're out driving around and you're thinking about what can I get for $5 or on, a $10 budget, can I get breakfast and lunch or lunch and dinner from a gas station? I mean, we should give that ourselves homework, so next week, bring your best gas station healthy.
Right. Well, you know what it is for me? It's really planning too. Right? And I think I feel like I've really trained my mind differently how I look at food now. And I think that's part of the issue. Unfortunately, we watch TV now. There's commercials for McDonald's and Wendy's. It's all fast foods. It's easy, right? But it's all fatty food. It's all foods that are not really that good for you in most cases. So I think you can train your mind to say, okay, I look at food differently. Food is about nourishment now. So as we talked, I do my fasting, so I don't eat again till noon. So if I'm going to be going out someplace, I'll try to push that fast farther if I can, for another 2 or 3 hours. But if I'm going to be gone, I'll make my own lunch. I'll bring some chicken. I'll bring some, prepared foods instead of having to stop at a fast. Now, again, it doesn't always work. And like Bill said, I think it's important that you're not perfect, right? Like any expectation to be perfect at anything you do, I think is unfair, especially with your diet. Yeah, go ahead and have a pizza every once in a while. It's how often do you do it? How much of it do you eat? But I think it's just really training your mind to look at food differently. Food is about nourishment. It isn't about, eating cheeseburgers all the time. It's really, okay, it's having a plan with your diet, when you're going to eat, what you're going to eat. But again, it's not always perfect, and not everybody can do it. But I think if you can get yourself into that mode a little bit more, it's much more healthy for you.
I think if you pay attention to what triggers you into bad eating, that's good. So instead of reaching for the Cheez-Its, I'll maybe go for a run or something if I'm anxious or Cheez-Its are not in the house right now, thank goodness.
But that's a good point there. Like instead of the Cheez-Its, have almonds in the house. So if you're going to have a snack, get almonds out. I'm very proud of myself now too. I must brag a little bit here. I'm starting to make my own homemade hummus now. So I have my hummus and cucumbers.
Oh,
it's
cool.
Nice. Yeah, very proud of myself.
And how are those cookies?
That's
smart. Bill, are you a good cook? Do you cook?
Some things. I'd say my wife Danielle is a far better cook than me. But and I enjoy cooking. I think there's nothing more fun than standing in the kitchen and making something nutritious, and it's the time with your friends and your family and others in the kitchen. That's something I do enjoy.
That is true. A nice glass of wine while you're cooking doesn't hurt either, right?
Yeah,
that doesn't hurt. That doesn't hurt either.
Yeah, in Allie's case, it'll be sake, won't
it? Maybe just one.
And one of the things we touched on before too, and I can't remember if it was on air. I know the three of us talked about it, but I'm going to the extreme here. I know a lot would have to change, but we're obviously doing a lot of things during the pandemic to save lives, right? We're shutting down restaurants and stores. We're wearing masks, all these things, and it has to be done. There's no question. But when you think about it, if you really want to save lives here, anywhere, but we're talking about here in the United States, our food choices and the way we eat are really a big thing. There's a lot of diseases that are caused by our getting obese and eating bad foods, don't you think?
Yeah, it's a really good point. Bill and I were kind of talking about that via email.
So you think about it. Go ahead, Bill.
I was just going to say, if you look at the Center for Disease Control, I think they put together some pretty good top line summaries. They're worth looking at for people, are curious about the real statistics associated with obesity and diabetes. It's pretty obviously significant in the United States. If you think of how many people, sadly, every year perish from cardiovascular disease, from heart attacks, from strokes, the numbers are, colossal. The numbers we've seen with COVID obviously are huge, but so those numbers are too. And, they are the major contributor to chronic disease. And to your point, Tom and Allison, I think, the people, a lot of the people that have perished because of coronavirus have those underlying conditions. They have diabetes, have obesity, and it puts them just at greater risk, for that kind of virus.
And I think some people get the idea too that if you're going to eat healthy, it's not as tasty, right? Like it doesn't taste as good, which just isn't true at all. Like you can stay away from salts and sugars and use other spices. Like I'm the king of spices here. I go to Costco, and if I don't buy a new spice every time I go to Costco, there's something wrong with me. So I just feel like there's so many other ways you can spice up your food other than using the salts and the sugars and the frying the food, like getting an air fryer instead of frying your food all the time. I think we just have gotten so much into this kind of rut where it's like we need to eat steaks all the time. We need to have potatoes with butter and everything. There's just so many other ways to have really healthy food that really tastes good too.
Yeah, I mean, some of those things like a steak on top of a salad is really great. So you can still have steak, but make sure you like layer it on top of. I think one of the challenges for me in thinking about public health is eating healthy is actually more expensive and more time consuming. And so I do wonder about how to make it more convenient and easier for people who, like I was saying, are, working a lot of shifts or working 12-hour days and things like that. Like, how do we do that?
But Allie, do you think it is? I'm going to take you to task here a little bit, Allie. Do you think it's more expensive?
I do. I mean, if you think about trying to get lots of fresh fruit and vegetables, like when I drive to hockey, I drive by McDonald's, it's 2 Big Macs for $3. If I want to substitute that with a sandwich from Subway, or a salad bowl from Subway, which gets you your greens, it gets you your protein, and gets you some calcium in your cheese and some good taste. I usually get olive oil and vinegar on it. I think we're at $8 just for that trade. And so if you're thinking about your challenge being convenient but healthy, I just think about this all the time. Like, it is more difficult. I really do think it is more difficult. And when I was traveling in Eastern Europe, I visited some very dear friends and stayed with them. And I didn't realize that back in the time when I was there in 1993, they were under tremendous financial economic pressure just after the Soviet Union came apart. And they were actually selling their rugs and things for fuel. And the food that they were eating had to be inexpensive. And I reflected on it later, and it was much higher fat because gram for gram, fat has more calories. It's got 9. Think about, the dollar value of getting enough calories into your body. It's just harder to do that.
Yeah.
So
I guess, what, I've got, to be honest, now that you're saying it, I think I've gotten kind of spoiled during the pandemic, being here at home. Because you just, you buy your own food. I've learned to freeze certain foods that I use I make my smoothies, so I freeze my avocados and my bananas. But yeah, I have got kind of spoiled with that.
Tom, I think you've gotten into some routines where you're pretty clever and you're pretty smart about what you buy. And I bet you don't waste very much. And you have I think to your point, Tom, it's like about setting up new routines, and you too, Bill, new routines that are healthier and just replacement. And I think if you do like a gradual replacement model over time, you can set up new good habits that maybe are not as expensive.
Yeah, because I've learned a lot during the pandemic that I didn't realize before. Like I said, I freeze my bananas. So I joke around because I talk to Google more than I talk to anybody now. And like I say, Google, can I freeze my bananas? So I freeze my bananas with the skin on, and I slice them up. And there's Google tells me that there's 30% more nutrients because the skin's on.
That's interesting. I freeze my bananas too for my smoothies. My kids actually love my smoothies because I put like milk and Honey Nut Cheerios because they taste a little bit like that protein powder. You can a smoothie place, like an actual place. Peanut butter and honey, and so Honey Nut Cheerios, milk, and a lot of ice, and then frozen bananas because they bulk it up more, so you feel more full.
Good. Okay, we could replace some of that stuff with some avocados.
Tom, you mentioned something.
Yeah.
What's that, Bill? Go ahead. Sorry.
Tom, you mentioned something about, you mentioned something about food and planning, and I think that's absolutely right. Kind of thinking through your week and your schedule and places where it's not going to be easy. And I some friends, we play golf, and the typical thing after playing 9 holes, you stop at a clubhouse and grab a hamburger because you're hungry. Well, now I get up in the morning, I just make myself a wrap, some chicken, some protein, maybe a couple of nuts in there, something just a little healthier than I like a hamburger once in a while, but it's just, I find, I'll walk 18 holes. I feel a heck of a lot better because I ate that than, the kind of the.
And you realize too, even with the hamburger, right? You realize, you don't have to have the bun. You could have the hamburger. It still tastes pretty good. That's
right.
I really get so much trouble here when I do that, Tom. We have, Beyond Burgers and things like that, which I really like, but I eat them without a bun. And I get in so much trouble.
Why? With the family?
Eat it like a normal burger. But I'll eat, I'm really bad. I'll eat the tater tots because they're there and they're so good, but not the bun. That makes no sense.
Well, if you were still going to eat the tater tots, at least you didn't have the bun on top of it. So, I mean,
but like really the lesser of two evils, I should have had the bun and only 3 tater tots.
But it is funny hearing myself talk about food. I used to have, I don't know if I told you a story, but for years I had this thing like every 3 months, like clockwork, I would have to have Kentucky Fried Chicken. I wouldn't have to smell it. I wouldn't have to see it. I would, and of course, when I went to buy the Kentucky Fried Chicken, I wouldn't buy like a 3-piece meal. I'd buy a 20-piece bucket. And it was so I'd eat chicken for a week. And at the end of the week, I just felt awful from all the sugar and everything in it. So then I hated the fact that I ate it. So I'd go for another 3 months and I'd repeat the cycle all over again. So that stopped now. That does not happen anymore. But it is funny. It is funny how you condition your mind about food, right? And now that I feel like I've conditioned my mind differently now how I look at food. So, yeah.
How many calories do the two of you eat in a day? Because you're both big, both athletic. I would guess 25 at least, 3,000. Do you know?
Yeah. So I figure I burn probably 1,000 calories a day. And I burn those calories during my fast too, which is supposed to be optimal because now your body's it's burning up calories, you're burning up more calories. So now you get to that autophagy state where it's now cleaning your body out more. But then so then I usually have around 4,000 calories a day. So that's the fun time. Once it's time to eat 4,000 calories, let's get at it, right? And then,
yeah.
How about you, Bill?
I think if I'm training for I train for an Ironman. I'm hungry all the time because I'm just burning through so many calories. And what if you go for 5 or 6 hour bike ride, you have to fuel when you ride too, because if you don't, you'll bonk. You don't do very well. So it's kind of the eating well, fueling, and then in recovery too. When I get home, you guys were talking about smoothies. That's kind of a big routine. Anytime I do a long run or a long ride, I'll make myself a great smoothie with protein, with bananas, put good ingredients, nice fruit in there, and yogurt, and it makes a big difference. I recover better when I'm eating better.
I've got to introduce you guys to somebody here who's on our show. So this young guy here, Kevin Porter, he's a firefighter up in my hometown where my father was a firefighter as well. And he's got a dream of playing. He's not going to give up playing in the NHL. I believe he's in his 30s. I can't remember exactly how old he is, but he's still dreaming of playing professional hockey. So he is a firefighter. I think he's an EMT as well. I hope I get that right. And he trains, constantly training he's trained as he would train to be a professional athlete. So he's a very inspirational guy. We had him on a show before. Fun guy to have on. Maybe we have him on again when you're on, you guys. So we'll get him back on. So listen, great conversation, guys.
That's a cool dream.
Yeah, it is, and he won't quit either. This guy is incredible. He's a beast. So, Bill, great to see you again. I love your story about Jeremy, and I love the fact you guys have kept in touch all these years too. And I know, like we said, it's to me why I wanted everybody, and Allie as well, wanted everybody to hear the story, not just how great you were in the whole thing, but how much you got from it too by giving back to somebody else. So that's a great story. So the key for us too, and Allie, you touched on it too. So we talk about this healthy diet and kind of changing the way you look at food, but don't expect, and you shouldn't even want to try to like flip a switch and just change it entirely, right? You've got to kind of evolve into that whole thing.
Yeah, gradual replacements, like you guys were saying. If you know you're going to be stuck somewhere, bring an apple or bring an orange. Oranges are great because they have natural skin on them. You don't have to worry about packaging them or washing them or anything. It's just ready to roll. It gives you blood sugar for your brain, and it might buy you an extra hour until you can get somewhere where you can eat more healthy.
Good. I agree totally. Well, great to see you guys again. Bill, fantastic to see you. How's business going and everything? You busy with work?
You too. Yep, very, very busy. It's never ending. I'm working on a lot of infectious disease type policy and pandemic preparedness with the federal government. So lots of conference calls, lots of late night calls. But it's good to see, I think there's, pretty good inertia in Washington to do the right thing. And I think we've learned a lot, from this pandemic. And it's a constantly, it's a learning exercise all along, but I think there are a lot of Washington gets a bad rap, for, obviously the extreme parts of politics, but I think there are a lot of very good, dedicated people, that really, really care about public health. They really care about infectious disease. And so I spent a lot of time talking with those folks and working with those folks. So I just, while we kind of look at, kind of the news and, the news the news that we have to, see a lot is obviously sensational at times and negative at times, or a lot of times. And it's just good to see that other side of humanity and see, what dedicated people are concerned with here.
Right. And Allie, she can do many things. She's an epidemiologist. She's a lumberjack. She's a fantastic wife and mother. But probably the most important thing she does is she cleans the bottom of the toaster out so it doesn't catch fire from all the cheese. Is that accurate?
Yes, I think that's probably important. And also clean surfaces in the house so there's fewer germs all around. Yeah, just like you said, Bill, there's just so many good people working on things. And I'll put a plug out there for podcasts. Listen to people before you choose to follow them, because there's a lot of like social media and Twitter even. Twitter has great stuff on it and really great people, but it also has things that can get you kind of riled up and nervous and anxious. And so I think take the time to actually listen to what good people have to say and hear them ask themselves questions and be willing to be wrong, and then maybe choose to follow them. I think I said that last week, but really nice to reacquaint yourself with, like, you two guys and all of your followers. There's a lot of really good people out there trying to do good things for themselves and for others. So thank you for spreading the True Grit life, Tom. It's really wonderful.
Great to have you guys back on. We'll see you again soon. See you guys.
Okay.
You guys too. Thank you, guys.